Oh, hi. I'm just playing the original Super Mario Bros. On the NES. Now, this is one of the most iconic and popular games, no doubt, but how well does it hold up nowadays? Let's find out. Mario, the world's favorite red hat wearing mustache plumber. He's been the star of countless games, gotten merchandise, a TV show, a movie. Mario's first ever appearance was in the arcade game Donkey Kong, released on July 9th, 1981 in Japan and July 31st in North America. The game became a huge success. However, at the time he wasn't called Mario, he was known as Jumpman. Hiroshi Yamauchi, the president of Nintendo at the time, assigned a first-time game designer Shigeru Miyamoto to make a game in effort for Nintendo to break into the North American market. Miyamoto was a fan of entertainment like Beauty and the Beast, Popeye, and of course King Kong, and thus that obviously helped inspire the creation of the character Donkey Kong. After that, a couple years later, Nintendo released Mario Bros. That came out on July 14th, 1983 in Japan, and July 20th in North America. Both of these games were only available to play in the arcade until they both got re-released on the NES, which came out a few years later in 1985, and released alongside the NES. The game Super Mario Bros. Came out as a bit of the successor to the arcade game. You see, in the original Donkey Kong, Mario would die if he fell from too high up, and Miyamoto wanted to make it so Mario could jump higher, and he wouldn't die if he fell from a bigger height, aka making him a superhuman of sorts, thus giving him the name Super Mario. This game was a revolution when it first came out, especially for platformers. It didn't invent the 2D platformer, but it innovated and popularized it. This was actually the first ever game I played. I played it for the first time on the Wii Virtual Console when I was around 5 to 7 years old. I could never beat the game though. I would always use the warp zones, get to about World 8-2, and that's about as far as I'd get. So keep in mind that I have a lot of nostalgia for this game when I talk about it in this video. Anyway, recently I sat down and played through the whole game, no warp zones or anything. Before we talk about this game, can I just say something right quick? Why can't you remap buttons when playing this on the Switch? The placement of A and B make playing this feel so awkward. Please, Nintendo, at the very least let us remap buttons when playing NES games if you're not going to let us take away the border. Or that, or this. Anyway, let's get back to the main topic of the video. This is Super Mario Bros. On the Nintendo Entertainment System. Alright, when we boot up this game, we're greeted to this game's menu, and we have so many options, 1 player and 2 players. What variety! I'm gonna go with the 1 player option because last time I checked, I'm only 1 player. The controls feel good. It's pretty standard for a platformer. You use the D-pad to move right and left, A to jump, B to run and shoot fireballs, and that's about it. Now let's get into playing the actual game, and dude, I gotta say, this is, in my opinion, the perfect first level for this game. It starts out by throwing a simple enemy at you. If it's your first time playing, it shows you one of this game's main focuses, jumping. If you don't jump over this, you die. After that, the level throws practically everything you need to know about the game. Pipes, bricks, question blocks, other enemies, etc. But it does it in a way that doesn't make it feel overly difficult. It throws each thing at you at a pace that's perfect. To be fair, that's kind of how you'd expect a first level to be, but it's still really well done here. The next level is an underground level. There's really nothing too special about this other than if you walk on the bricks above the level, you can go past the regular pipe that leads you to the flagpole, and it'll instead lead you to a warp zone, which allows you to go to World 2, 3, or 4. But we're not doing that. The next level is a sky level, I think. You're basically jumping from tree platform to tree platform with some elevator thing thrown in there every once in a while. Next up, we have the castle level, which is probably the most thematically unique out of the first 3 levels. It's filled with all kinds of fire type things like lava and fireballs and whatever that thing is. And then at the end of it, you're face to face with Bowser, or King Koopa as he was called at the time. You then cut this conveniently placed axe and Bowser's dead. And then you've done it. You've saved the princess and you beat the game. Just kidding. You save the toad and then do the same thing 8 times again. Something that I'm not a big fan of with this game is that the levels don't really change much in terms of stuff like themes or gimmicks. You basically have 5 different types of themes across 32 different levels. You have your standard level, your underground levels, your underwater levels, your sky levels, your castle levels, and that's about it. Yeah, it's kind of lame. At first I thought it was probably due to like limitations with the NES, but Mario 2 and 3 had different themes and gimmicks for each world. Why didn't this? I guess it could have to do with the fact that by the time those games came out, they knew the hardware better since they had been working with it a lot longer. But I don't care. I'm still gonna whine about it. The lack of that much variation in themes or level gimmicks is kind of boring. It's kind of like the original Zelda in this sense, where there's not really much difference in the world. You have the overworld, the dungeons, and there's a graveyard in there somewhere. It's not that big a deal. It just would have been nice to see a little more variety, that's all. Sometimes they put enemies like Hammer Bros in places that felt like it was impossible to get past them. Like, seriously. You have to do things like this on the exact perfect frame. It's ridiculous. It's fine when they're just jumping from block to block, but when they're just on the ground like this, it gives me the feeling of the first 4 to 5 worlds felt fairly easy and were honestly pretty fun. And then around World 6, they took the difficulty meter and just cranked it up to the max. That's not to say the game becomes unfair or should be dumbed down or anything. At least for me, the difficulty just increased very suddenly. Oh, and the boss fights barely change at all. They're all against Bowser, and they're basically the same thing each time. They make him throw hammers about 3/4 of the way through, but like, well, that's about it. Now I know, I might have sounded a bit negative at times, but this is still a pretty decent game today, especially for an early black box NES game. But it's incredibly simple, and it's definitely not as good as the later NES Mario games like Super Mario Bros. 2 or 3, but overall, it's still a pretty decent game, and if you wanted to see where Mario basically started, go for it. So yeah, while Super Mario Bros. Has definitely aged in a few aspects, and has some minor annoyances, it's still a pretty decent game to play today.